call to order the Town of Lake Lore Town Council regular meeting Tuesday, December 13th at 5 p.m. Thank you all for coming very much. If you would please stand for the invocation of the pledge.
Father God, we thank you for an opportunity to gather here tonight. Thank you for all of the men and women in our community who volunteer, work, ensure our public protection and safety, and for all of the passion that goes into ensuring that our community moves forward in the coming days and years and for generations to come. We thank you for this wonderful holiday season, for all the reasons that we come together to celebrate as family, friends, cohorts, co-workers, and sometimes as a passing stranger at a random aisle in the grocery store, just to say Merry Christmas. Thank you for the reason for this season. May it always be in our hearts and provide us open mind, wisdom, and understanding as we move into these next steps for this chapter of our community. In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
I didn't have a fight over hot sauce at the grocery store today, but almost did. So. Came to mind.
Well, thank you all so much for coming. We always appreciate everybody who's here to share with us this time to decide where our town is going. So that means a lot to us. I would like to make one announcement, and that is that our work session meeting that we normally have the last Wednesday of the month is canceled in December because that is Christmas week and no one was going to be here, so there was no point in having it. So that is canceled, just to let you know. We will now move on to the town manager's communications. Mr. Perkins.
All right, we'll start off with public services. They were happy to be able to announce that the full round of leaf blowing with their new machine was completed on November 23rd. The ditch and culvert cleaning in town is now at 100% for the year. They've made the rounds to all of those. And then they've also addressed all of the remaining mechanical issues at the lift station, so everything is up and running
Careful.
100%.
You need to approve the agenda.
I'm
Okay.
sorry.
It's all right.
That is my fault entirely. I skipped approving the agenda. I beg your pardon. Haven't had an opportunity to review the agenda. Do I hear a motion?
Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion, we approve the agenda as written.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Then we will move forward now. Sorry for that. We will go back to you, Mr. Perkins.
Okay, we'll pick it up with community development. They had 33 permits compared to 32 in October. 10 of those were zoning. And I believe we heard at our work session that they were happy, Mr. Williams was happy to announce that work is now proceeding again with AT&T on the cell tower. So we have progressed to the point where that is in motion, and we expect to see some progress very soon on it. And then they also conducted training during the month of November for their Board of Adjustments. Moving on to fire and emergency management, they had 36 fire and medical rescue calls, and they engaged in 272 hours of training in the month of November. And then they also performed the inspection on the fireboat. For the police department, they had a good month there. They were proud to report they had 2 officers recently completing their general instructors school. This is going to help them teach others and assist in the instruction of their own rookies, as they call them, for Lake Lore. Moving on to Parks and Recreation, they had a number of trail maintenances for Buffalo Creek, Weed Patch, and Ditman Watts. The volunteer hours for the month total at 104. And then they also worked with completing, well, they have application that's been drafted for the 2023 dredging grant application. Moving to finance, nothing new to report. They are going to move forward with looking at our vacant position for our accounting clerk 1 position. We hope to have that engaged the first month of the year in January. For communications, they had, Ms. Creedy had 28 news articles, and they were reached in over 1,840 citizens. We had 7,792 website visitors and 19,152 followers as of the month of November on Facebook. And then moving on to the manager's, clerk, and admin report, We worked with Labella to work on the planning process for the next HDD, or the directional drilling that's going to happen. I had previously reported that was gonna happen in January. We talked earlier in the week. We now expect that to happen in February. But we're hoping that we'll end up getting enough people involved with a larger scope project. And if we end up having some problems with numbers of bidders, we'll have enough time to be able to regroup on it. And then lastly, I am happy to report that I was able to work out an arrangement, and I have an acceptance from an individual for our project manager position. His name is Michael Didula. He is from Raleigh, and he is expected to report to work with the town of Lake Lure on or around the 9th of January.
Good news, very good news.
Yes.
Great.
Very good news. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
thank you
Thanks.
very much.
He has a PE too.
Yes, sir, he does.
Just want to mention one thing when we're on the town, and everyone's doing such a fabulous job here, but very thankful for the job that our police department did in their annual drive to provide gifts for the children at Lake Lure Classical Academy. It just would break your heart to see how grateful that they are. So I just really appreciate that they do that, and they take up that cause and do it every year. So just want to make sure everybody was aware of that. So thank you, Mr. Perkins. We will move on then to the council liaison reports and comments. Commissioner Goster?
So zoning and planning, the last time we talked, we were working on identifying the fact that zoning and planning is responsible for like structure ordinances, which we're moving forward as we meet with that board next month. We'll start putting some of those things into place. Michael Williams and I have talked about kind of how we move forward to try to shake out some of those gray areas that are written in some stuff that's kind of old. Parks and Rec did not meet this month. Would you like is the chairman, are we doing those now, or are we doing those?
We have a
later?
section on the
You
agenda.
have
We have a
Okay.
section on the
Okay.
agenda
Yeah, okay.
at the end.
That's
yeah.
all I have.
Okay,
Thank
thank you.
Mhm.
All right, Commissioner Diorio?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. For the Board of Adjustments, there's one appeal that'll be coming up as new business item A, and so that's all I have to report for them. For the Lake Advisory Board, they went through the new training protocol for the Lake Lure boating licensing, and we just discussed that in the Marine Commission, but for everyone's benefit here, that's gonna go live here real soon, so you'll be able to see it on the website and start the process to getting your boat license that everyone's gonna be required to get to operate a motorized vessel on Lake Lure. And so that's looking really good and should go live, Laura, I think here within a couple of days. And so I'm told. Whenever
Whenever
you
they
send it, okay. That's all I have to report.
All right, thank you very much. Commissioner Proctor?
The ABC board did meet. The big news is, at that time, they had interviewed for a new co-manager but had not hired a co-manager. That person is now theirs, first name Trent. He's co-managing with Earl, who has been at the store already, and that, I have not been there, but what I have heard is the store's looking better and, in just a short amount of time, so that's good news. And if you haven't been to the liquor store lately, they do have extra treats this time of year, sometimes for classes and things, so go see what they have.
Thank you.
They'll be closed on Christmas Day, to be fair, yeah.
Oh,
Don't.
I would hope so,
Lest we all
yeah.
forget, yeah.
I
They're
would
closing
certainly-
early on Christmas Eve also. So.
yes, which is sooner than we think, right? All right, then, that concludes our council liaison reports. We're now going to begin with our presentations from the advisory board chairman, and this is something, that we will do annually, and I think it's going to be very good for everyone to be able to get a proper appreciation. I'm such an advocate of our advisory boards, and there's just so much energy and expertise and skill in the community that people are willing to develop the time to do that, and we appreciate everything that you all do, we truly do. But I'm not sure everyone in the community always knows exactly what it is you do. So I think this is going to be very helpful for people to find about the annual presentation, what we did on each board. So we will start with the ABC board, Mr. Sales.
Madam Mayor,
Oh.
as the chairman of the ABC board is walking up there, I'll have to admit that I was out of town most of this month, and I forgot to tell him to prepare for one. So by the seat of his pants, he will give you a presentation.
I think Olivia said, didn't you send out announcements to everyone? Yeah. So we are, I know that Richard is prepared, even if he didn't know about it, so I'll just put it that way.
Olivia took care of that, yeah. Just to let you all know, if you don't know, I'm sure you all do, but the ABC board and the store is going through some transitions since I've been on the board. I'm happy to announce that I think things are starting to go the right way. We've hired a girl, Patricia, and I've been hearing really good things about her, and we just hired Trent McGuire as a co-manager with Earl, possibly in the future GM, finance officer kind of title for him. We're going to review him after 90 days to see where he stands. But he's only been there a week and things are looking really good so far. Needs more training for sure, but I'm setting that up. I talked to Greg Stallings today and introduced myself to him, and he was happy that I reached out. He was going to reach out. He's going to send a person called Quinn Willard to be a performance auditor, to take a look at the store and what we're doing, what we need to grow on and things like that. So that's a good thing. And I also reached out to the GM, Jeff, in Hendersonville, ABC, and we talked a little bit today about getting his finance officer, who lives in Girton, to meet with Trent, myself, maybe even Rhonda, our accountant, to make sure that, he said that she is the best one that he's ever worked with, and he's worked in some big stores. So those are going really well. We've changed accountants. I think you all know that. I briefly talked with both Greg Stallings and Jeff about a new auditor. The last one we've had, we're kind of on the fence with, but we can get a new auditor. And Jeff, the GM of the ABC store in Hendersonville, had some recommendations he's going to send to me that he's been using for 40 years, or Hendersonville has. So that's good. We're going to do an inventory the first week of January, after the new year, excuse me. And then probably continue to do those monthly until we get things straight. Or at least, eventually we'll end up doing quarterly, but Greg Stalling said that was a good thing, and he recommended doing the same thing, so. I believe that's all I've got for you, but, yeah, things are starting to look a lot better than they were.
Sounds like they are. That's I know there's tremendous amount of change and work that's been done by the board this year, so thank you all. 'Cause
We've
that
had a
was-
lot of turnover, so, and people not knowing what the heck they were doing.
Well, I think we have a board now of people, and for people who don't know, the ABC board is a little different than the other advisory boards. They are actually responsible for the running of the ABC store. And so that's by legislation, so it's a little bit different position that you're in than just being an advisory board who's given recommendations. So, and thank Commissioner Proctor too for being the council liaison. So we feel like we're moving in the right direction for sure. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Rich.
Yep.
Greg Stallings is our ABC state guy, right?
Yeah, he's
the
the
Raleigh guy.
ABC commission,
Yeah. got it. I think I
point of
met-
contact.
I think I met him
okay.
one time. Okay.
Is it regional? Regional
He's
or is
over
this-
the state,
The
I
whole
believe.
state?
I
Okay,
think
Greg
so.
Rollins, okay. I just
Yeah.
wanted to commit his name to memory.
Yeah, he's
Okay.
a good guy to talk to.
Nice.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will now move to the Board of Adjustment, Leg Structure Appeals Board. Mr. Hardy?
Yes, ma'am. I'm filling in for our chairperson, I'm the vice chair. Neil Gurney would normally be here, but he had an appointment that he was unable to get rescheduled, so you're stuck with me. Got a few things that you can kind of, you can send that part that away and maybe.
Sure.
I'll part that out and let the other up. I would split it right away.
It's all the same thing.
There's one more,
One page.
one more this way.
Okay.
Yep.
Everybody got one? Yeah, I got one with you. It was interesting that you mentioned advisory boards being the norm. Our two boards are a little different as well. We're not advisory in any fashion, really. We're statutory. We hear cases, we make decisions that are legally binding. We have more formal structure to what we do. We have protocols that have to be followed. We have sworn testimonies. Might have attorneys involved. We've got cases being presented by various parties, you know. The normal kind of legal stuff. We're quasi-legal in nature, but we have to follow certain protocols. And I've handed out our activities basically that through November anyway. We've had a total between the two boards of 15 cases we've heard. I've been on the board about 5 years, maybe, I'm not sure, it seems like 10. But this is more activity than we've had in any of those prior years. There's a lot more going on. I don't know if that's good or bad, but we've had a total of 15. We've got 3 more, I think, on slated for next week. So we bring us close to 20 for the year. 10 of the 15 are Board of Adjustment, 5 were Lake Structures Appeals Board. There's 4 general categories of kind of issues that we deal with, types of requests that we have to rule upon. By far and away, the variances, zoning variances and requests are the bulk of them. We do have, our special use permit requests that don't happen very often. We had one this year. Basically, those are situations that don't really fit anywhere, and we just have to find a home for them. As long as they meet the other issues, we'll generally approve them, and we did that one. We also had 2 deck top accessory structures for the Lake Structures Appeals Board this year. Normally, we have more than that, but those are usually pretty straightforward. The town staff does a really good job of having them prepped, and all we have to do is basically tick them off for the most part. We also handle appeals of administrator decisions that I don't think I've had any while I've been involved. Almost we're gonna have one year. This year, we were looking forward to it, but that one kind of got pulled at the last minute, and I don't think that individual's been heard from again. I don't know, it disappeared, but at any rate, so 12 of the 15 cases were related to variance requests. 10 of them were approved, only 2 were denied, and 1 each by each of the boards were denied. So that's kind of a recap of our case structure, if you will, this year. Regarding the board itself, we've got 5 regular members, 3 alternates. The regular members have been largely involved for 5 years or more. The alternates have typically been, 2 of them are new this year, actually. One's been as an alternate for a couple of years. We try to expedite the process by which they get involved, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But they're all experienced people, good common sense, good decision makers, definitely committed, and really take their responsibility seriously. We agonize, as Dave will maybe tell you, we agonize over decisions sometimes. to the point of, maybe it's excessive. But we try very hard to make the right decisions, considering what we're faced with, what we're required to deal with, and taking into account other intangibles maybe that come into play. If it comes to objectives, goals maybe, the way we're structured, we're not really set up to have goals per se. We're reactive in truth. We're dealing with whatever comes across the transom for us, basically. So we have to deal with those issues. But we do have an opportunity to improve by training, education, and I got to give credit to the town, Mike and Rick, Dave, our liaison, and Neil Gurney. Collectively, that group of people put in some really nice, programs for us that bring our education up to speed, and get us set up for the future probably a little more efficiently than in the past. Three specific things. As opposed to the past where our alternates sit on the board maybe for a year, maybe for 2 years, while they wait for a spot to open up. They might not actually be involved in anything. They'll observe, which to a point's helpful, but beyond that, I mean, the real active place on the board is going to bring you more experience than anything. So this year, Neil put in a situation where we will put alternatives on, depending on the caseload and what looks appropriate, and ask one of the standing members to kind of sit aside to give somebody else a chance to see what it's really like. And I think that's where it's very successfully thus far. I think all three of our alternate members have been probably on at least 2 cases each. So it's worked out, and I know they think that's beneficial. Secondly, rather than having the chairman, which up to this year has been a situation where he handles basically all the cases himself, follows the protocols and everything, to broaden the base and get some cross-training for the other members, started to delegate some of that to other board members so that we might handle maybe a specific case from start to finish. In some cases, we've handled an entire board meeting if it wasn't overly complicated. So that's all worked out really well in addition. So, and finally, the other thing that's been put in place, and the burden on that has fallen largely on the town staff, Mike and Rick. We've had a total of 7 training sessions this year, 3 on the Board of Adjustment, 4 on the Lake Structures Appeals Board, and they deal with learning more about specific regulations, changes in some of those zoning regulations maybe, dealing with specific topics that might be thorny or challenging for us to contend with. We have several that seem to fall into that category. So a lot of time and effort's put in to bring us up to speed on some of those kind of things, and I think it's long-term really been helpful, and it's even to the existing guys that have been on the board for several years, it's been a real plus. So that's kind of where we're at. Again, I want to thank the staff. Dave, you've been really a big help for us, and thank you so much. And support of the council has been great as well. So I don't know if you have any questions for me. I'll be happy to take a shot at them.
No, I'd just like to say we appreciate how much, it is a difficult board because you are reacting to what comes up, but we just want you to know that council supports your decisions. And we appreciate all the work and the investigation and the research that goes into it and the deliberation, and we support you 100%.
Well, thanks so
Well
much.
done. Thank you. Thanks, Wade.
Thank you so much. We will now move to Parks and Recreation, Mr. Jim Walters.
You look nervous.
I look nervous.
No, not at all.
Leave him alone.
Well, I'm sorry.
Leave you alone.
No, I really appreciate the opportunity to talk publicly about the Parks and Recreation Board, because we've got a very dedicated cadre of people who, of the 7
board members that we have. We've all been on the board for more than 2 years. Ed Dittmer's been on the board for about 16 years, and Larry Schakowsky more than 10. So we've got a very, very solid foundation that has led us to 2022, and coming off the heels of the 2 years that preceded it, it was very satisfying, I think, to be a part of this board and to truly be advisory. Unlike my two predecessors, we are strictly an advisory board, and to advise the town council, the town manager, and the mayor on the recommendations and suggestions that we have. Because this board has been together for as long as it has, it might be easy to say that we had the very successful year in 2022 that we did because of the strength of that board. But I think that's unfair to a lot of other people that have contributed very significantly to the strength of what this board has to offer. We've got a foundation of support that goes back for years. And I mentioned Ed Dittmer, Larry Schakowsky. Both of those gents have been very involved in things that have transpired in the course of implementing the town center plan, the Morse Park master plan, the town master plan, the Highway 9 corridor plan, all of the things that involve parks, recreation, land use, and activities are, we have the continuity of having had people who really have been involved for a long, long time. Probably more importantly, at least from my perspective as the chair of this board, we benefit from having tremendous support from the town staff. Our recorders over the course of the last year have been Kat Cannett from the police department and Corby Bradley, who was hired this year for the Parks Recreation and Lake Department. Dana Bradley, I think she's here. I saw her earlier, I guess.
She left.
She moved on. Anyway.
She didn't know you were gonna call her name.
Yeah, that's, but, and certainly Dean Gibbons. Laura Creechy has been absolutely invaluable to us in communicating to the public what it is that this board does and the advice that we have the opportunity to do. Beyond those specific people who are aligned with the board day in and day out, week in and week out, the remainder of the town staff is always available to us when we need the support and we need to have questions answered, we need to have things done, we need to have trees removed, we need just a myriad of things that the town staff is able to jump right in there. The town staff has been supportive of us for as long as I've been a part of the board, and that has provided a foundation that allows us, I think, to make good decisions and to make solid recommendations through our town council liaisons to the council and to the town manager. We've had phenomenal support over the years from, I think there have been 4 town managers since I've been involved with the board, and everybody has been very supportive. Our council members over the years have been just absolutely great. In fact, we've had 2 council members who left the town council and came onto the board, Linda Turner and Diane Barrett. So we've had a great deal of continuity that has led us to the point where we are able to work with all of the other organizations that we do. And in that regard, it's really important to us that we have the great opportunities that we do to communicate with other organizations and activities around the town, around the county, and around this part of the state. And as an example, with the Buffalo Creek Park and Trail to Eagle Rock parking issue, our board members worked very closely with the resort and with the county, and working to make sure that we had landowners whose properties were adjacent to the trails that understood what we were doing and how we were going to proceed. The chances that we have had to work with county organizations, the Rutherford County Trail Coordinators, the Rutherford County Tourist Development Authority, and they have been very helpful to us, not only on Parks and Recreation, but as Mayor Pritchett particularly understands, with the town steering committee. And we've worked with the TDA on that very, very diligently over the course of the years. We've worked with Chimney Rock State Park. We've worked with the town, Chimney Rock Village, and Mayor O'Leary. We've worked with Smith Rayner, the Trails Director for North Carolina State Parks, about the Hickory Nut Gorge State Trail. All of these things are efforts where we have had the opportunity to have a coordinated effort to work with other organizations to make sure that we really do have the ability to accomplish things and to get to move forward. Sometimes it seems as though we're kind of putting things together in a patchwork fashion, but that's really not the case. If we look at the plans that we have, the master plans, and what we see as the end point or the end game, it's pretty obvious that we're making a lot of progress, even though it may be individual pieces that get linked together toward that ultimate goal of a final product, be it a park, Morse Park with our amphitheater, and the Morse Park master plan, and moving some things from this area to the green space. All of those are incremental, but they're working toward a final objective of accomplishing what it is that we need to accomplish. As I think about other uses, recreational uses in town, Wade Opplinger from the Lake Lure Rowers is here tonight, and the whole effort to get to allow the rowers to use the lake and to get out here and to represent Lake Lure essentially as rowers on a national level started with a presentation where Wade stood right here. Our meeting was in this room, and he laid out what his thoughts and ideas were for bringing the Lake Lure Rowing Club here, and that all worked out. So we've had the ability to build on the solid foundation that's there for us from town staff, from town council, from the mayor, from the volunteers over the years who have worked on the board, from the other organizations that have supported us, that we've added trails this year. The trails that have opened up, the Summit Trail, and the mayor and Rutherford County love nothing more than ribbon cuttings, and we've had a couple of those this year where we've had the chance to formally designate a facility or an entity open and available for people to use. And we continue, the real objective of what we want to accomplish is to continue to work toward ensuring that the Dittmer Watts Park gets integrated with the green space, and that the Lake Lure Classical Academy can continue to use those spaces if they choose to do so for events like cross country. And so we've got a we've got a long-term vision of continuing to work toward enhancing the parks, in some cases adjusting what is available in a park, opening trails. The Lurmont Trails system up above behind the La Strada restaurant is very close to getting the approval from the state legislature to be able to develop that trail and put that in. There is one, Dana Bradley's working on one issue with one item that has to be approved by the legislature because part of that ground is Duke Energy right-of-way, and we have to be very careful about not encroaching on that without their permission. But I could go down the list of every single park facility that we have and explain what it is that we are doing with it and what we project will be done with it. But the mayor preempted that in the Mountain Breeze this week, or this month, with a great article that explains what we're doing on all of the park facilities, park and recreation facilities that we have. So I think we've got a really dedicated group of volunteers. We benefit from the professionalism of the town staff and the town council and the mayor, who have been chosen by the citizens as the representatives to make sure that we do the right thing and we keep on track. I owe a debt of gratitude to Commissioners Bryant and Doster for their efforts as our town council liaisons, because they're there. They have been. They shifted that responsibility during the year, but they've always been there for us and provide the opportunity to communicate with the board, with the council, if we need to do that. Again, I thank you for the opportunity, and as always, I'm happy to answer questions or offer any thoughts that above and beyond what I already have, if you have questions,
Questions, anybody?
comments.
I do have one. Thank you, Jim,
Yes.
for your work and the work on the board. Outstanding. If I get your conversation correctly, and I've seen the interconnectivity between all the trails that really go around Lake Lure eventually.
Yes.
So I think what I'm getting from you is the main focus the main fruit that may come to bear next year would be to continue that interconnectivity and the development of that system. Is that a fair assessment on what you're gonna be working on?
Absolutely. And Smith Rayner from the North Carolina State Parks Trails Office
Yeah.
has that in mind. She wants to connect this ultimately somehow
Yeah.
with the Mountains to Sea Trail.
Yeah.
And, that may go up through South Mountain. We may go, over toward Rutherford and Forest City and then go up that way. And there's the Blue Way Trail, if you will, the Broad River floating trail that goes the other way. So that's exactly right. Yes, connectivity is very, very important,
Yeah.
particularly for the Hickory Neck Gorge State Trail.
Right. No, thank you. That's awesome. Spectacular.
And I'm sure Conserving Carolina would have a pretty vested interest in that also.
Yes.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah.
Well, Jim, thank you so much for your
Thank you.
leadership and everybody
Yes.
on the board.
Thank
And,
you, Jim.
I think it really is a reflection of the synergy between your board members, their experience, the staff. The staff is incredible. And, the staff, that's one thing, it is so important to these advisory boards. The staff gives a lot of their time and effort and really participates and supports what the board needs to do. So thank you. And also, thank you for chairing the steering committee too. As you all know, that's really sort of an outgrowth of the Parks and Recs, and it's just an ad hoc committee that meets to decide what's going to be done with the TDA funds. And Jim, willingly or unwillingly, but he did it, and did it very well, accepted the position as chairman for that committee too. So thank you for that, Jim.
I spent 29 years in the Navy. I know how to take orders.
I hear you.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you. Go Navy.
Thank you very much.
Go Navy, darn right. What? They all lost. That was sickening.
I didn't mean to say
Tom,
that.
were you here? I don't see Tom.
pretty good.
I'm sorry. I don't see him. Is Tom
No,
here?
he left.
He left. All right, so,
Okay.
zoning and planning board, Mr. McKay had to leave. I don't know if there's any other member here. If not, we'll just have to save that for a future time. But we appreciate all the work that they're doing as well. Is there anything that you want to say as
No,
liaison?
zoning and planning did approve the new food truck ordinances this year.
That was big for us.
That was a pretty good,
Yes,
pretty
it
good deal
definitely
for us.
was.
And like I said earlier, they've really spent a lot of time, Michael, of going through old, worn-out rules and regulations that may not just fit us today, and start to look at these things kind of one at a time, and just try to pick them off as we go forward. So I'm sure that'll be on the agenda for next year, no doubt about it, so.
And I'd just like to follow up by saying, this last year, we really made a concerted effort, and thank Commissioner Diorio in particular for that, and sort of spearheading that, to try to make sure that our advisory boards were a little bit more transparent, that everybody was better trained, everybody had a much better sense of what their mission was, so we could reflect on it. I really think the fruits are shown here tonight. We appreciate it so much. We truly do. So thank you all. It's not just something you drop in once a month for an hour. There's so much work, or 2 hours, done during the month to prepare for your meeting, so thank you all very much. We will now move on to public comment. No one signed up to speak. Is there anyone who would like to make a comment? Well, once again, we appreciate your coming very, very much. Thank you. We'll now move on to our consent agenda. Are there any questions? Are there any changes, or do I hear a motion to accept the consent agenda as written?
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda as documented in the
Yeah, I'll second that motion.
meeting.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Then the consent agenda is approved as written. We will move on to unfinished business, and under unfinished business, we'll continue our discussion with the belt press discussion. Mr. Perkins?
Yes, Mr. Lindsay, our Public Services Director, has provided us with some material in here for some comparisons. I'm gonna invite Mr. Lindsay up to discuss the findings and what's been presented in the agenda packet for you.
All right.
Okay, from the cost analysis we did, that was based off of using the belt press, or if we did the rental, which is from our sludge management, doing a rental for 4 times a year. Those were the costs in the top line. And then the comparisons were showing that if we did purchase our own belt press, and then the payoff, of course, after a 10-year period, and then we're looking at that for it's been the estimate for the duration for the sewer project. But all the calculations show the cost comparisons if we would get our own belt press. And the biggest thing on that is we wouldn't have to wait every 2 months. We would be able to manage the treatment plant a lot better. That will help out our chemical usage, keeping the sediment basin empty for our situation, since this is the only way we have to dewater the sludge for the treatment plant. That was, all these numbers were put together. That's something that if we would pursue it using it for the ARPA funds or our current sewer funding.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
So when we rent one, we're not responsible for the maintenance, correct?
No.
So-
These machines they're not very maintenance intensive.
Okay,
Basically, it's just bearings and rollers. The only thing that's a wear part is the belt.
right.
That we would change probably for our usage, probably estimated every year to 2 at a cost of $10,000 to $15,000 for a belt.
Okay.
And of course, the consumptions are the energy, just while it's running.
But we pay that when we rent
Yes.
it anyway, so.
Yes.
Right.
Mhm.
So, yeah, thanks for that, Commissioner Doster. So, Dean, from what I see here, it looks like we pay it off in about 5 years.
Yes.
And so, and you do this on your own terms. So what that really means in real terms is, right now, we have to see if there's a belt press available. Sometimes they're not, yet our collection facility continues to build up. And then, of course, we have a storm at the most unfortunate moment, at the time that we're most filled in the wastewater treatment plant, which creates problems for us. So I think that this belt press, when you do it on your own terms, you can stay ahead of that to prevent some untoward incident during a storm from happening.
Yes.
Is that a fair assessment?
Biggest thing is, for our situation, our
Yeah.
treatment plant is sludge management.
Yeah,
And, in the past, it has been just, we haven't been able to manage it very well, but we're improving on everything on this. We would run the belt press instead of every 2 months, it would be run every week or every 2 weeks
stay ahead of it.
to stay ahead of it. So if we do have a blowout of the plant, the biggest problem is we fail our samples.
Yeah,
And that affects us on the environmental end,
right.
the fines and everything. This is just in an effort to manage our plant and try to prevent NOVs from the state.
So a little bit of history, we did want to try to go with a centrifuge, but the price tag on that was not cost effective, right? It was something like $1.9 million.
Yes, around
And
$2
so-
million.
So this is kind of a alternate, but it's a less expensive, cost-effective alternate. Is there an application for this belt press, potentially with the new system too, with the settling area if
Yes.
we had to?
We
okay.
could still pursue the belt press depending on the ARPA funding. It could be
Okay.
part of the new treatment plant. But at this time, we don't have it's up in the air for the approval on the funding.
Right,
But this is the centrifuge is the nicest, most efficient way to go, but it does cost more. For the
Yeah.
belt press, we can do less efficiency, but it's very effective.
yeah.
And it's
And-
something, the cost difference is just, it's huge compared to the centrifuge.
So big picture is, with a 5-year payoff, doing it on your terms, preventing bad things from happening, don't know when the wastewater treatment plant's gonna be in there. This is that interim solution that's gonna keep us viable until we get that. And you may even be able to sell the belt press perhaps at the
Yes.
end of this, if we don't.
If we have
wanna
end
go
of
to
life, we
centrifuge?
can sell the
Okay.
belt press when we make another decision, or if we do the treatment plant, it can be used still at the existing treatment plant. Whether we get a centrifuge or not, it can always be used, or we can sell it. And I think I did put in there a sell back after a 10-year,
Okay,
the estimate.
and the ARP funds are available for this?
No, this would be, I don't know about for the belt press, but it is part of the sewer. It could be used for maintaining our system.
What was it you said earlier?
Well, I think what we're here this evening to talk about the pros and the cons of what we're doing and sort of get an idea of the way we want to move forward in the future. What I would like to caution everyone with is that we were originally told the ARPA funding or our fall round would be coming to us at the end of November.
Yeah.
Now we're talking about it coming, we heard on Monday, it's gonna be February before we do that.
Oh, okay, okay.
We've got an $8 million original appropriation of ARPA money that is available for our subaqueous as well as the treatment plant. We've got another application in conjunction with Chimney Rock Village, which I don't think this is gonna happen, but it could be another $25 million, all in all. What I think we ought to do for it is, before we pull the trigger one way or the other, is to see how the ARPA funding goes. Definitely, if we have all we're ever gonna get from ARPA at that 8 million minus what we've already spent on it, and the 12.5 million for the revolving loan, then we need to be a little bit more cautious on how we choose to spend that money. Certainly, that's a way to look at the
Yeah.
belt press option.
Right.
But if the money is going to come along and we get anything in the order of magnitude, anything close to $20 million, then we're gonna have another problem on how to spend the money fast enough.
Yeah.
So at this point, what we need to do is kind of get an idea of the recommendations and the pros and the cons, and then sit it out a couple of months and see how the ARPA money comes in.
Okay.
Then pull the trigger and figure out where we're going.
Okay.
Until then, the cost of the,
Yeah, because we have a
Decision
deadline
is-
of 2025 to spend it all.
To spend it all.
Yeah, to spend it all, yeah.
Right.
Spend
Well,
on what we get, yeah.
until then, we still do the rental, no matter what, at every 2 months.
Right.
so what I can say, I mean, it's almost like, either way, we ought to consider this, because if we don't get the ARPA money, that means that the sewer timeline will probably be expanded, which is an even greater reason to have an interim solution.
Right.
But if we do get the money, then in order to spend it in a timely manner, we may end up going after it too. So I think.
Or the other one too, we could reevaluate the centrifuge option.
Oh,
That is
I see what you're
transferable.
saying.
If we get the
I-
money,
So
I-
we'll do
if you're looking at
I gotcha.
a
I
windfall
gotcha.
of money, or
Okay.
1.9 million that can be moved to a new plant.
Yes, sir, I get
Yeah.
that. No, I get, no, great point. Thank you for that.
This
So,
is a 10-year legacy project.
so, do you need anything from us today?
No, I was just looking to
Okay.
make the presentation for
Yeah.
the pros and the cons, and have Dean available for any questions on it.
Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Thanks, Dean.
All
Good
right.
work.
Mike's still here, good. Okay, we will now move on to new business. Our first item under new business is hearing request to appeal denial of lake structure variance request number 202203. Mike, is there anything you'd like to share with us?
Madam Mayor, this was a variance request that was brought up before the Lake Structures Appeals Board last month. It was a case where their boathouse had been destroyed during a storm, and they applied to build a new structure. It was approved at 15-foot high, the maximum height on the lake. And when we went out to inspect it for the final, it was 18-foot high. It's about that simple from our perspective. That's what the regulation says. That's what the permit was issued for. They have their, so that's what we said it had to be adjusted. They asked for the variance hearing. It was considered, and they made a decision that it did not meet the standards to grant a variance, and that's where we are.
My understanding was the original plans that they sent to you to start with, that you approved, was at 15 feet.
Correct.
And then in the as-built, when you came back for the final, it was 18 feet, correct?
And they acknowledged that, and they apologized for it, but it's just, it was built that way.
Sure.
And the only recourse by our ordinance is to bring it before, to appeal to the town council.
Are there any questions for Mr. Williams?
No, ma'am.
Right, so the recommended motion is either to grant or deny the appeal
Is there someone here?
or denial of lake structure variance request. Is there someone who would like to make a comment?
Hello, I'm Shannon Harris, the owner. And just to give you a little rundown, the boathouse was built too tall, and we did not realize it. We didn't know that there was a 15-foot variance because we didn't do the plans. The constructor did the plans, and that was approved. But then after our boat got crushed from the storm, we got a different boat, and the top is higher than our original top on our boat, and then it has the antenna that comes up. So when the boathouse was being built, my husband just said, you might want to just build it a little bit higher because I don't know that this boat's going to fit in there because it's taller than the boat before. And that was basically it. He built it a little bit taller. We didn't say how much taller. It ended up being 3 feet taller, and I'm just begging you to please consider that it was a mistake, and we have lived here. I've lived here my whole life. My parents had a house in Trine Bay Cove for 37 years, and my husband he grew up on the island, and we would never, ever do anything to mess up the aesthetics of this beautiful lake. We have letters and emails from our neighbors saying that the structure is in no way hurting them or bothering them. I even have a new one. I'm so nervous, I'm sorry.
Just take a breath.
No, take it.
I can
You're
talk
fine.
in front of
Just
kids all day
relax.
long, but
You're fine.
this is big.
You're fine, you're fine.
And just, they're willing, I have a neighbor here who's willing to send out a petition. I mean, just, we're not hurting anybody. We're in the back of the cove. You can't even see the boathouse until you come into the cove. We're the only one in the back, and we only have 2 neighbors on that side. And we have letters saying that it's, in no way bothering them. And I'm just begging you, please not make us tear it down.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
and you did just fine, thank you. Sure. If you
Come
wouldn't
on
mind,
up,
would you
come
come on?
up, Jen.
Would you just come on up?
So I'm Jen Dittmer, and this boathouse is literally, I mean, you can't even see it from the lake. It is way back in the back of the cove. The surrounding lot, in fact, the tree that hit the boathouse during the storm is not, it's not occupied. I don't think it's buildable. It's a very steep slope down through there, and she's got letters from all of the neighbors that would in any way be impacted by this boathouse. And I just want y'all just to show some mercy, because it was an honest mistake. I know Shannon and Mike very well. Y'all may know my parents, Kay and Ed Dittmer. They did a similar many years ago. I don't know what it was, but I remember the drama at the time. But it was a gazebo on top of their boathouse, and they had to go through a variance. It was turned down. They ended up getting a petition with 500 signatures, and they were allowed to keep it. So just asking you all to really consider that the cost and the expense to tear this down versus the impact that the negative impact it's making. I just don't think it's a fair trade.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to make a comment?
I do have one question, so I'm still confused as to why we can't lower it 3 feet. Okay, we raise boathouses here all the time. Seems like you take a chainsaw and a couple of chain falls and you get it done.
I'm Dave Odom. We were the firm that designed the boathouse. It would be impossible to do that. From all of our analysis so far, there are LVLs that are there that are very heavy. So the concern is not just that they're heavy and we'll have to take them down, but they're screwed in and glued in, and we're not sure that they're going to be usable once they come down. We'll have to go up and analyze it. I think Shannon just emphasized the point. There's no real injured party in this at all, and the cost just does not seem to be justified for solving what really isn't a problem.
Thank you for explaining that for us. Thank you. Any other questions from the council?
So your plan called for 15 feet, right? Your original plan was a 15-foot, and how did you come up with 15 feet? What made you build a boathouse 15 feet? Why didn't you start out at 18 or 20?
Well, the code says 50.
I'm asking him.
Oh, sorry.
How did you decide to make a 15-foot boathouse?
Well, that's the regulatory limit.
Okay, and so now we've ended up with an 18-foot boathouse, right? And the reason for that was the owner said, my boat's not gonna fit, so just go ahead and raise it up?
That was his communication with the builder. We weren't involved in that decision.
Okay,
But, I said before, if you look at our plans, there are a lot of dimensions on our plans. Most of them don't have any regulatory limitation at all. They're just dimensions identifying how far apart we want structural members, and quite frequently, those get changed. This got changed, and it had a regulatory limit, and we just didn't get an opportunity to notify them.
right,
that, hey, you got-
okay. Because all the structures on this lake have limits, regulatory limits. Width, height, length, distance from the shore, there's a lot,
And you get variances on some of those. There have been variances for boathouse heights.
occasionally, right, right.
Any other questions, comments?
make a comment. I keep coming back to page 2 and 3 of the report from the Lake Structures Appeal Board, and the conclusion, you know, I hate to cause trouble for folks, but you know, they had 5 findings of fact that are the reason they denied the request. And they seem pretty substantial to me.
Yeah, I think the,
It's page 88 of the meeting
Okay.
packet.
88 and 89.
yeah, the dilemma that we're in is that the board found that the requirements for the variance were not satisfied, which means we're doing it out of the goodness of our heart, which sets a precedent, which means anyone who is not allowed to have a variance on the 15 feet. And there were, Dave, there were other variances, but they were inches, they were not feet.
Well, they were made before they were made they were made on the application and not after the fact, I believe.
Oh, on the application, even before they started, yeah. So the dilemma that we have is that by setting the precedent, we open the door for everyone who did not get a variance approved to come forward and submit a complaint, and in the future, basically disavows that regulation because we granted the variance. So that's a dilemma that we're in.
So do we need more time to deliberate, or time to, are you at the point where we are ready? Sure.
I completely understand, that you set a precedent. I'm a school teacher, and you can't treat every child, every case, and put it in a compartment. You have to look at other factors of what's going on. And this was not intentional. I mean, I can't say it any other way. We would give anything if the storm hadn't come and the tree hadn't fallen on our boathouse, because we would have never even wanted a new boathouse, or a new boat, for that matter. And the insurance did not cover everything because of the expense of what materials are right now. It will definitely, I know that you say we've created our own hardship, but when I tell you that if we have to tear this boathouse down, it will be a hardship, and we won't have the money to build it back. I'm just being totally honest. And I know that might not affect y'all or you care about it, but, you know, some situations require you to go outside the bubble and listen and have a little empathy. I mean, I'm just begging you, please.
And I think everybody appreciates your situation. And certainly nobody is saying that it was done intentionally, so certainly everybody understands that part.
Okay.
So are we, is council ready to make a decision? Do there need to be more deliberation? I mean, it's gotta be one of the three. Table to make a decision.
I guess we vote.
I guess that,
All right, do I hear a motion then? The recommendation is to grant or deny the appeal of denial of lake structure variance request number 2022003. Do I hear a motion to either grant or deny?
I'll make the motion. We'll see what the voting does. I move that we deny the appeal of the lake structure variance request number 2022003.
Is there a second?
I'll second. Jim?
I'll look at that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
then the appeal is denied. And to say that we have no empathy for you would not be true. We truly do. And we are very sorry that it happened. All right. We will move on then to the next item on new business, which is the Duke Energy easement, number 1649620. I believe that Mr. Perkins, that is your,
I'm gonna let Mr. Mike Williams come forward.
This Duke Power easement is a request for an easement for lines that are running from the water tower off of the property. It's the existing communications antennas that are on the tower now. It's just with the new technology, they have fiber, I think it's fiber lines. I really don't understand it all, but they just need to have that easement to run the lines across the property. And so we've taken they prepared the easement, had Mr. Morgan review that, and we've talked with Public Works, and we see no issues with it.
okay?
And this is on the council's agenda this evening, not because it's a controversial issue, it's because the council has to be the ones involved in
Right.
granting.
Town
easement
property.
Yes.
So, any questions for Mr. Williams? Do you have a motion then to approve the authorization to execute and sign the proposed easement agreement with Duke Energy in relation to parcel number 1649620?
I'll make the motion to approve the authorization of 1649620.
All righty,
I'll second it.
all in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Then it is approved. Thank you very much, Mr.
Thanks.
Williams. The next item on new business is drawdown preparation work. I will, Dean Lindsay, thank you.
Okay, as we're drawing closer to our drawdown session, everything going on with Rubicon, we're working out all the many details of the operation of the project. And I get told a lot, this is, well, for everything, we're trying to learn how to do this and do it better every year. For this year, we do not. The first item is the use of Jay Freeman's Marina and his contracting services. Since we don't have the deepwater access ramp available for the drawdown period, we've come up with a solution that Jay Freeman, we will contract through Jay Freeman to feed the materials to Ruby Collins. That is in an effort to keep Ruby Collins on site, keep them working on the boring. And we don't have a deepwater access, so we can't stage materials. So we're proposing to use Jay Freeman or his company that will keep the barges loaded and keep the material on site for the contractors so that they may keep the equipment going in effort to finish the boring project. Also, for Freeman's part on this, we have to supply the auxiliary stuff, the porta-johns, the fuel. We have to keep the fuel tanks full, and just anything, the refuse and everything from the job, all that will be handled with a supply barge that the town is looking to, will acquire the supply barge, and that's how we will keep the project fed. But it will be through Freeman's company, everything from getting materials from the laydown yard, from the laydown yard to his marina, from the marina to the job site.
So is that total cost there, $250,000 for this, or this just the materials?
Yes, that was the 250 has been updated since the issues with we were not notified of some of the equipment that was going on the barge that greatly exceeded the weight limit on the barge. So we were just working on that today. that number has increased. We have to add a section to the existing barge to accommodate the weight of their excavator. It's a 60,000-pound addition, and that's pretty huge. And we were trying to get it, originally, we were getting the equipment out there. Now, it's not economical to do that with all the equipment that they've added. So we were coming back to, they'll have to, when they bring the equipment out, they're just gonna have to do 2 trips. A big thing we were looking at is if we had we've notified them if we have a big storm event, that whenever we do our weather, the weather updates, if we determine that if we think the lake level is gonna rise, then they've got to get the equipment off the back shore. But instead of doing it on 1 trip, they'll be have to do it on multiple trips if something like
Yeah.
that happens. We have told them that whatever equipment's left on, it could be, we should have a fair amount of notice, but for safety, we gotta be able to egress all the equipment off the shore if needed. But that will be it'll be done in 2 trips now. For the new barge addition, for the main barge, we have to add 1 10x40 section, and that's to accommodate the boring machine and their new excavator and our excavator. And the other addition to the barges would be the supply barge that Freeman's company would use to get the boring, concrete, all the equipment to the job site and keep them fed. Right now, the estimate is they will be making deliveries 2 to 3 times a week, or 1 to 2 times a week, depending on progress. But on the town's part, that's just in an effort, keep them on the job site, keep them working on it. I'm sure you've seen whenever you deal with barges, anything on the lake, it's not a very fast process. And if we're paying the contractors to move stuff back and forth, we don't believe that'd be very effective.
Freeman's gonna use our barge?
Yes.
Do you have
Go ahead.
do you have a cost from him? Any kind of estimate for his help per hour?
Right now, we're working on it. He gave a cost for we did two costs that we're getting from him. We requested for the fueling. It would be for the maintenance and fueling and the porta-john, the trash and the DEF fluid. That would be one line item. I think it was, I can't quote the numbers right now because we're still negotiating it, but for the barge work itself, it was in the ballpark of $3,000 to $4,000, I believe. But for him, he has to mobilize his crew to get the materials. We're trying to look at if the materials in the laydown yard, transferring everything, using his equipment to get the barge loaded. The only thing that he would be used as the town's property would be the 624 loader. And that's just to get the bigger concrete, the heavier items.
Yeah.
We just gotta get on the barge.
So we're not making any kind of motions here for funding, right?
No,
All we're
this
doing
is just
is
for notification.
you're
This
just
will
telling
come
us
out of
what's
the
Yeah.
capital project fund,
Okay.
which is funded by the loans.
So y'all will have an update on what the
We'll have
additional
totals
costs
for all
are.
this stuff next time.
Yes, but we did,
right?
due to the time, if we need to make a motion, we need to get this stuff purchased immediately. I've only got,
Yeah, that's the key. You're
I've
kinda
only got
prepping
a
us for
couple
this.
weeks.
Yeah.
We're trying to get everything together.
Yeah.
Yeah, time is of the essence. We know in the barge, we confirmed that we don't need a motion in a second for the purchase of additional barges.
Yeah.
Move forward, confirm that we're good with adding barges to the,
Yeah.
the
Existing.
ARPA stuff.
Yeah.
We'll end up with a contract for Mr. Freeman. Some of this stuff that we're talking about, last time we discussed the contract with Ruby Collins and what was it? The work that we could do on our own to operationally
Right.
maintain our equipment.
Right.
There was some concern, some discussion of our own people maybe taxed too much for doing that work. Some of the things that Dean has talked about, like fueling, and even some of the operational maintenance that Freeman could do, would be things that would be done in place of Ruby Collins if necessary. We can't help but think that whatever we pay Jay Freeman with would be a deal compared to having.
Absolutely.
No doubt.
That is
No
absolutely
doubt.
will be.
Right.
So we think that we are potentially killing two birds with one stone. One, not implicating our own town forces and spreading them too thin. The other, potentially being able to defray some of the cost in the contract with Ruby Collins with a cheaper provider from Jay Freeman on some services.
Yeah, Hank, I think that's in keeping with what we're trying to do here. This is a test, and we don't know what we don't know. But the guiding principle to keep them there keep them with their core competency doing the stuff that only they can do, and then having the town and local folks support them to keep them in place is absolutely spot on. And that's gonna be cheaper for us in the long run. So I think we stand ready to receive, to make those good decisions, and then adapt and be responsive to that as we go forward.
Yeah, and a lot of what we're doing, the barges and the mats and things, we're talking about things that, assuming we move forward in future years, we're talking about, similar to the equipment that we purchased, it's the equipment that will be used in future drawdown periods, so it's not a
Yeah.
duplication of equipment for the
Yep.
future. And it's also a way in which, we know that we've had a certain amount of these people in Sunset Cove remove their boats from their lake structures. We want to make sure that we afford Ruby Collins every opportunity and no reason not to get to every single lake structure that needs to be bored under.
Of course.
And we don't want to have, at the end of the project, someone that is, we have to look at them and say, we didn't get to you, we'll have to get to you later. We apologize for the fact that you did this. We want to be able to have Ruby Collins afforded every opportunity to work as fast as they can to get the job done.
So what are we looking at here in terms of needing a motion for something?
We don't, we need a philosophical decision that this is the approach that we want to pursue, and then adapt to it, Madam
Right.
Mayor. I
Because
think.
we need an update on money before we actually.
Right,
Yeah.
and I think that that'll come out, but I think
Yeah,
what you need from us right now is to,
But we're trying to be transparent with what we're doing moving forward,
Yeah.
but we need to move
Follow
forward
the
quickly.
Yeah.
So
Right.
do we have a consensus then? Let's do it that way.
Yeah, I think so.
Consensus of the
Yeah,
council
that's a
that
good
this
way
is
to
a
do it. I
good-
think you're
Good
right.
way to
And
proceed.
having Freeman as a local
Yeah.
knows the lake.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
it's a win-win across.
We're
the
keeping
board.
the money in
Well,
town.
Yeah.
I mean, really, it almost has to be done, right? Because we're using that ramp, okay? We don't have a
a
cheap
choice.
ramp,
Is there
so.
something else you want to say?
Yeah,
we
I
need
want to ask you, that call on Tuesday, you were asking him about the mats, and you asked him.
Yes, the mats, the
Have you heard back
decision on
from
that, we made a decision, that's more operational.
Yeah.
It's too specialty, so I did turn that over to Ruby Collins.
I know,
and asked
I know,
them-
I was, go ahead.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Have you heard back from him yet?
Yes, on which
That they're
matter?
gonna get them, they're taking care of it?
Yes, I did not give them a choice on that matter.
Yep.
The big thing is we were not communicated about the equipment.
Right.
And that changed the barge, it changed everything we've been planning on, so we're here to make it work.
How
But
do
it's,
we not get communicated on the equipment? We've been talking to these guys for, we've
All
been
right, so
talking to them
we're,
forever.
it is
Yeah.
consensus of the council then that we are, this is the way we want to proceed, so we'll leave it
Yes.
at that.
Steve,
Yeah.
that gets it done for us.
Does that work?
That does everything we need.
Yes, I just wanted to make sure about the timing of the funding and about the approvals, so I think we're good. I
We're
think
fine?
good.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Right.
Thank you.
Let me just make sure with you as town manager, do you think we need approval on the materials that we're talking about?
I'll tell you what, if you're in the place just to make sure we don't, I think what you're saying is better safe than sorry.
That's, yes, I would.
Okay, if
I
we
would
can go
agree.
ahead and have a formal motion in a second to approve moving forward in this fashion. Is that what you're asking for?
Yes.
Any
In case we need to bring something, if that's just to regards to any materials or supplies that's needed in addition to what has already been approved.
Okay. So that's the motion.
So moved.
Okay.
So basically, it's the motion to approve the brief summary in our package.
Right, to move forward and get whatever materials and things we need to push the forward project.
Okay.
The project forward.
I'll second approval on the brief summary as presented in the packet.
All in favor?
Aye.
Then it's approved.
That gets us legal.
Yeah,
Okay.
all right.
Madam Mayor, I do have a little bit different but similar topic. I had the opportunity to go to Sunset Cove yesterday and noticed that some of the boats were still in boathouses. I know it's not the deadline, but
Right.
is there communication folks to?
Absolutely, there's that, the lady in red over there has been
Okay.
burning him up on it. The
I-
last time
I
we
just-
talked about,
It was near the deadline, so I was a little apprehensive on.
well, we did have some conversation with the engineers for it. There are only about 2/3 of those boathouses that are implicated with they're having to have their boats removed.
Yeah,
So
not all of them.
we had that come up before with having somebody verified. They were in Sunset. harbor, but they were not somebody that was going to be in the way with their boat.
The line did not go under the.
Well, these were boats that were on a lift, so I.
Right, but that was the
But
point,
the
is
pipe
that
isn't
not
going
every,
underneath all of them, Jim. Some
Right.
of them are gonna be bypassed.
Some
So
of
they
them,
don't
yeah.
have to
Oh,
take 'em
okay.
out.
Yep.
right, there's
Okay.
a possibility, we had one that was relayed to us, and the address just was not somebody that needed to get it out.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Okay.
That's what I was telling you.
Yep,
Thank
yep.
you. All right, we will move on then to our next item, which under new business, which is designation of the legislative goals biennium voting delegate. And I believe that's Mr. Perkins.
Yeah, this is part of the league's deal. They, every 2 years, as it says in this, they go through a process for their legislative goals and objectives for it. They are going to be, over the next few months, culminating this process in a vote, and it's gonna be by electronic means for, basically their marching orders as the league and how they address the General Assembly and what type of, goals and advocacy they do on behalf of the towns.
If I
So
can
what-
just add a little bit to that.
Yes, ma'am.
We've been actually meeting with this, I'm on this board
Mhm.
for the legislative agenda. We've been meeting since September. There have been, all over the North Carolina, there have been meetings for people to posit their ideas about what should be presented to the General Assembly. We meet like once a week, it's 3 or 4 hours, and go through it. There were like, 500 goals, some reasonable, some not possible, some, duplicative. So, and it's been boiled down now to, the ones, a priority list. So that is what will come down now to, from like 500 to down like 10 goals. And so those will now be sent out to each municipality, and each municipality has one vote to vote on that. So it's been, I've done it in the past several years. It's been a very deliberative process. There are some things that are very important to every municipality. There are some that are only for one particular one. So we're trying to find the ones that would have the best bang for your money, so to speak, that are doable, but also affect the majority of the municipalities in the state of North Carolina.
Yeah, so this evening, what you've got is we've been given, we just got this notification last week. We have a deadline of January 12th to select the voting delegate. So that's why we have it on the agenda for this evening for the council to select that delegate.
Will you volunteer for that?
I will. I'd be happy to. I've done it for the last couple of years.
Okay.
Do you
Familiar with it.
physically have to be there, or do you do
No,
it by
it's
proxy?
electronic?
It's electronically.
Okay.
It's electronically. So it is a good process though, and it's very informational, particularly to me, because you do get to see the things that are important to other small cities, some of which coincide with ours and some of which don't. But
And you wanna do it?
I'm happy. And listen, I've been working on it now for 4 months, so
Yeah.
this is why.
I move to nominate the mayor as the legislative goals biennium voting delegate.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you so much.
Dodge the bullet.
All righty. That concludes our open session. We are now gonna be moving into closed session, and there are no other items on the agenda after the closed session. So we appreciate once again your coming.
Thank you so much.
And your participation. And please enjoy, as always, Ms. Creegy's lovely refreshments back there. We'll take a 5-minute break.
I'd like to make
And
a
then-
motion, we move into closed session then.
All right,
In
second.
accordance with GS, yeah.
And unofficially, I would like to say I really like
Love
the
the page
page
numbers.
Oh,
numbers.
the page numbers. Thank you, Olivia.
Yeah, it's-
Yes,
that
we
makes-
appreciate that.
That makes communicating what we're looking at much
Excuse me,
easier.
all in favor of going into closed session?
Aye.
We will,
If you notice as well, the page numbers are on the agenda as well, so
Right.
you got that.
yes,
So
that
That's all.
that is very,
Yeah, I saw that,
yeah, very helpful.
Man, you look great.
Except we need a fine of about
more or less
23
budget.
instead of 6 now.
Yeah, he wrote it. You didn't.
I'm letting